So yeah, just jumps there. So like I was saying, we sometimes underestimate how useful they can be because they're so simple. I'm here to tell you, don't make that mistake. So why we want to use them, all right? So there's kind of a couple of little areas. They involve triple extension. We're going to jump in a match, so you may as well practice it. We want to bulletproof the body against injury. Okay? So this idea of triple extension, it's a phrase that you'll hear. It's all it is when you go to sprint, you extend your ankle, your knee, and your hip. Okay. In the same idea, in a jump or an Olympic weightlifting, in both of these exercises, you're going to extend your ankle, your knee, and your hip. Okay? So you hear this phrase, triple extension. This is what people are talking about. And it's really, really obvious. You can't jump without extending all three of those joints. Okay. The first thing when we're looking at bringing jumps into our training, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at how do we land? Can we land safely? Can we control our body weight? Can we control the land? Okay. The next kind of 20 slides or so are examples of exercises. Okay. So hopefully it makes sense. They're done by me. So some of the technique might not be fantastic. I recorded them all in one go. So if any of them aren't any good, we'll just blame that I was tired by the end of the session. All right. So first thing we're going to look at at the start of a jump program is just this idea of a landing. Okay, so all we're going to do, like you see at a warm up, just that idea of absorbing force. So you're just going from being up in a tall position and absorbing that force. Can you land that? So if you can't do that comfortably, you've no business moving on. And all that we're going to go through tonight is kind of progressions. So that's your first step, that idea of controlling a land. If you're comfortable with that, you can go into jumping into it. So you jump in and nail your landing. Okay. Same sort of idea. You're just stepping into a jump. Can you control your landing? Can you get that position and really, really be comfortable in that position? All right. If you're comfortable doing that, we can make it a little bit more challenging. We can look at jumping from a height, landing from a height. So it just makes it, there's more force hitting the ground. So all we're doing is stepping off and again, trying to control that landing, trying to absorb the force. So stepping off and trying to still nail that position just as solidly as we did when we stepped into the initial couple of landings. Okay. If any of these don't play or you're not seeing them, just give me a shout. When you're really solid on that, and this is kind of a more advanced exercise, you can weight that landing. So you can challenge it by making yourself heavier by holding weights in either hand. So all that's going to look like the exact same movement, but we've just added a little bit of weight. Same idea, you're trying to control and own that position, that landing position. Okay. So in terms of the things we're going to think about as we go into the actual proper jump stuff, types of jumps, you have different directions of jumps, and you have different ways of doing the jump. Okay. And it looks like there's a load of words there, but as I talk you through it, it'll start to make sense. So first and most basic jump is what's going to be called a non-counter movement jump. So you're going to squat down, you're going to hold that position for a little while, and then explode out of it. So it's a non-counter movement. There isn't an elastic component to get you out of it. You're going down to the bottom of the jump, you're holding it for a couple of seconds and exploding out of it. Okay. When we're comfortable with that one, kind of the next progression as it were, is this idea of a counter movement jump. So just your ordinary vertical jump, drop and get as high as you possibly can. Okay, so that's the simplest, most basic jump that everyone will have done. If you try to jump normally, that's how you're probably going to do it. Okay. When you kick it on, then the next exercise, looking at a double contact jump. So you're looking at jumping into something. So all it is a little step into it and take off. Again, looking to get as high as you possibly can. So what we're doing is each of these exercises, they're becoming more forceful. Okay, there's more force, there's more power. Okay. Similar to the landings, once we need to make it harder, we're going to make it harder by starting from a height. So a depth jump or a drop jump. Technically, there's a difference between the two of them, but we won't get stressed on it tonight. So all you're doing is you're stepping off a height that you can control and that you can get up off the ground again. All right. Continuous jumps. So again, if you've done hurdles before, it's going to look something like this. Pop, 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 spend as little time on the ground and continue. There's no break in between. All right. So I've given you 5 jumps there. Okay. And the idea of a jump is exactly what it sounds like. You start on 2 legs, you jump as high as you can or as far as you can, whatever, and you land on the same 2 feet. Okay. You can do all of those jumps as a hop, which is take off on one leg, take off on your right leg, and land back on your right leg. or you can do them as a bound. Take off on your right leg, land on your left. Okay, so every single one of those 5 exercises that I've just gone through with you there, you can use as a hop or as a bound. Okay, so now you've got, straight away, you've got 15 different exercises there just from the 5 I've shown you. 5 different types of jumps, 5 different types of hops, 5 different types of bounds. Okay, just for clarity, a hop, we're looking at take off on one leg, land on the same leg, versus a bound, which is going to be take off on one leg and land on the other. Okay, and you can do that as a non-counter movement, as a counter movement, as a drop jump, as a continuous jump, as a double contact jump. Okay, so the idea of tonight's conversation is to build up that library of exercises that you can do. Okay, so it's, like I say, tonight's a little bit shorter, but we're trying to give you exercises that you can use tomorrow. You suddenly now have 15 new exercises that you can do just off what we've done so far. Okay, you have 3 different types of jumps. As I say, you have 5 different ways of doing the jump, and you can also go all these different directions. I say at least 5 or at least 4 directions there. So you can go as high as you can, a vertical jump. You can go forwards as far as you can, a horizontal jump. You can go to one side, so that might be a lateral jump, we're calling it there. And a rotational jump is where you might turn 90 degrees, you might turn 180 degrees, you might turn 360 degrees. Okay, so you can take these 3 words, these 5 words, and these 4 words and create any exercise you want. So you might decide you're going to do a counter movement rotational jump. And that's where you jump as high as you can, spin in the air, and land on 2 feet. Your next exercise might be depth bound going horizontally. Okay, so you step off something, off one leg, go as far forward as you can, land on the other leg. Okay, and so you can take any of these, and all of a sudden there, now you've suddenly got 60 different exercises that you can use to improve your power and also to reduce your risk of injury. Okay, so I think if there's a real useful kind of slide there in tonight's conversation, it's this one. You have 3 different types of jumps, 5 different ways of jumping, and 4 different directions. You can pick whatever you want, and you're going to have a couple of power exercises to throw in your warm-up. If you're just going for a run or doing a gym session, you can do them as part of your warm-up. If there's coaches here, I'd be encouraging you to pick 3 of these at the start of every warm-up, vary it up. Or if you're just looking to do a power session yourself or a speed session yourself, just pick a couple of these and vary them up, get your body used to as many different conditions as possible. In terms of just how they transfer and how challenging they are, as we go further across the list, they get harder. So continuous is more technical than a non-counter movement, for example. A hop is more technical than a jump. A rotational jump is more challenging than a vertical jump. But we also know that if we take these middle ones, the different types of jumps, these carry over to different types of exercises. So a non-counter movement and a counter movement are really, really good if you're working on acceleration. So if your top speed is pretty all right, but you're struggling off the mark, it's these exercises that you're looking to highlight, the first couple of them, okay? If, on the other hand, you struggle more with the top speed stuff, it's this end, the depth jump and the continuous jumps that you're going to add in, okay? If it's more a change of direction type of thing, then you're looking in the middle, that double contact. Okay, so just something to bear in mind, how we can get most benefit out of these exercises. The slower movements are more related to your acceleration. The faster movements are more related to your top speed. Okay, so that's jumps. Hopefully you've got something useful out of the basics on that. We can load them, make them a bit more challenging. I like loading them with a trap bar. If you want, you can load it with a barbell on your back. I'm not mad on it, but if you're comfortable with it, go for it. If you don't have access to a trap bar, you can do it with dumbbells. And again, we can do this with all our jumps, all our hops, our bounds. So suddenly you've got the 60 exercises I showed you, weighted and unweighted. You have 120 new exercises there now. If you're really, really confident on the plyometric stuff and the explosive stuff, and you have a decent bit of work done, you can look at what we call accentuated eccentrics, okay? So a heavy person is going to hit the ground harder than a light person, okay? You're going to fall at the same speed, but you're going to hit the ground harder. You make a bigger contact on the ground. But we know that a lighter person is easier to get off the ground. So what we're doing is we're trying to combine here the best of both worlds. So we're going to take the person who's jumping, we're going to add weights to them. They're going to fall with the weights so that when they hit the ground, they're heavier. going to drop the weights. So now when he takes off, he's lighter. Okay, so it's going to look something hopefully more graceful, but along the lines of this. Take off, drop the weights, and jump out. Okay, so as I'm falling there initially, I'm heavier, but as I hit the ground, I'm now lighter because I've dropped those weights. So if you're looking for a really, really good way of working on that depth, those depth jumps, and you want to challenge yourself a little bit, that's a really good way to do it. Please throw something under the weights. Don't wreck the floor of your house or your gym or wherever you have the opportunity to train. Final one then, in terms of more complex ways of training your jumps, this idea of overspeed jumps. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm holding on to bands that are tied onto something above me, and as I jump, they're lifting me up. Okay, so as I jump, the bands are pulling me way higher than I would get otherwise. All right, so I'm getting a little bit of assistance. So where that's going to be really, really applicable to, I suppose, is those guys who are jumping and girls who are jumping in a line out. If you're jumping in a line out, we know that you need to put some effort in to get off the ground, but we also know that someone's going to help you. So that little bit of assistance can be simulated by these overspeed jumps. So having a couple of these big bands are really, really useful. All right. So with the basic stuff, just the ordinary jumps, don't ever neglect them. But as you get more advanced, there's ways to progress it. Like I say, load it, the eccentric loading jumps, and then overspeed jumps. Okay. So that's kind of jumps. They're good because we can keep them simple. The big thing is we don't want to just go through the motions. You have to look to get as high as you possibly can, or as far as you can, whatever direction you're going. Put as much force into the ground as possible with every single rep. All right. You've loads of choice. I've given you 100 odd exercises there really quickly. You're only limited by your imagination. And look after yourself. If part of your body is sore, don't do that particular jump. Okay, be clever. Don't end up injured. All right. Second part, sprints. Okay, and next two parts are a little bit quicker, I suppose. We're looking at this idea of sprinting, and every single year it amazes me. Someone will come up to me and ask the question of, well, how do I get faster? And I ask them, well, how often are you practicing running fast? And very often the answer is, well, only at training when we do it. Okay. You need to change that. You need to actually do a session in your week where you're challenging yourself to get better at the speed stuff, whether that's acceleration, whether it's change of direction, or whether it's top speed. So acceleration, looking at, like I say, you're off the mark stuff. You don't have to start off in a set of blocks, but a couple of runs every week where you're just starting from a dead stop, from your tummy, lying on your back, starting on one knee, starting on two knees, and up and gone. And just looking at your start as it was. So that those first 10 or 12 yards, that's all we're worried about. Get off the ground and go. That's going to be massive because most of the movement in rugby isn't at top speed. You're accelerating. You're after hitting the ground, after being tackled, you've got to get back up and get to the line. Or you've got to make a change of direction because your team has lost the ball. You've got to accelerate off the mark to get back into your defensive line. Or we're moving along nice and slowly, everything's set, we're ready to run a play, and suddenly someone kicks through. We've got to accelerate off the mark and actually chase that ball. So practicing acceleration is really important. But again, that idea of using your imagination, start whatever position you want and go for it. You don't have to do loads of them, but just work them into your training week. Into direction. So we're looking at pushing off the ground. But for me, let's make it as easy as you possibly can. Let's put the ball in your hand and let's actually work on it. So you can start off real simple. You're running straight at, say, a post on a rugby pitch and look to just sidestep it. The goalpost isn't going to move on you. But let's start there. Let's get those really good movement mechanics off, pushing off your right and pushing off your left, so you can change direction either side. When you're comfortable with that, get someone you can work with, someone who's living with you, or in a housemate with you, or a family member, or whatever at the moment. Or when we get back on the pitch, get a teammate and get them just simply to walk towards you as you sidestep them. As you get more comfortable with that, get them to come at you with a bag, and eventually let's get to a point where you're happy for them to tackle you if you don't get around them. So challenge yourself with that, build it up. But again, if you don't practice, it's not going to be there on game day. It's not going to be there when you need it. You have to practice these skills. Final one there, and you don't have to be Phil Healy in terms of your flat out top speed, but occasionally doing a couple of those sprints where you're actually getting right up to top speed is important just for injury prevention. So on a rugby pitch, it can be something as simple as start on the 22, you run into the 10-meter line and try and accelerate all the way and hold top speed from one 10-meter line to the other 10-meter line. Just that 20 yards of top speed and then ease off again. Do 3 of those in a week and you've got a really, really good insurance policy against getting injured, against picking up those high-speed hamstring. Okay, so speed, you've got to practice. If you don't practice it, it's not going to be there when you need it in a game. Okay, final chunk, throws. And I think in terms of developing power, if there's an implement I was going to encourage you to get, it'd be a medicine ball. It doesn't have to be something crazy weight-wise. I'd be looking at something that's maybe between 5 and 10% of your body weight. So if I'm 80 kilos, I'm looking at something between 4 and 8 kilos. It doesn't have to be anything crazy heavy. All right, but there's loads and loads of ways we can develop power with that simple tool of a medicine ball. All right, so again, I'm going to run through a few videos and like I say, hopefully they play for everybody. If they don't, give a shout. Again, the direction you train is the direction it's going to transfer into. So you want to expose yourself to as many different directions of throws as you possibly can. Okay, so first one here, just a simple horizontal medicine ball throw. I'm throwing that as hard as I can off the wall. The next one there looks like the same sort of a setup. Difference there is I'm using the lower body as well. So first one, we were just using the upper body. Second one there, we're incorporating the lower body as well. So dropping into a squat and powering out of it. Okay, so again, use both of them in your training. Use one for the first couple of weeks, use one for another couple of weeks. Keep varying these things, but we're trying to, power is something that you lose if you don't train. That ability to produce power declines all the way along your playing career, okay, unless you train. So next exercise there, same sort of idea, standing up, I'm just throwing that as far as I possibly can, hoping not to break the camera. Next one there, we can get exciting. We can mix some of our med ball work with some of our throws. Sorry, some of our med ball work with some of our jumps from earlier, all right? Or with our speed work. So a nice one is where we go a reactive jump squat and accelerate into it, okay? That's one that you can use if you want to use that as a jump. So it's a vertical jump, or you can go a vertical jump into a little bit of speed work. So you can actually accelerate out. Obviously, I wasn't going to do it with a camera in front of me, but you can go, as you throw it, accelerate out, and you're sprinting as fast as you can off the mark. So we're practicing a little bit of jumping, we're practicing some upper body power with the throw, but we're also practicing our acceleration. So you've got one exercise there that hits 3 parts of your warm-up as it was. Okay. Again, like I say, different directions. So looking at vertical, you're just throwing it as high as you possibly can. Okay. Rotational ones, I think, is where medicine balls are really, really useful. If you go into the gym, you can push a bar overhead or you can push a bar forward. It's a little bit more challenging to do rotational stuff. So I think that's where medicine balls really come into their own. So one example here is just a simple chop. So starting from high and going from high to low. All right, bouncing the ball off the wall there. All right, so that cross body bit of a throw. This next one here, straight away you're going to see how it's going to transfer across to your actual rugby. I'm loading at my hip and exploding through, looking at hands finishing towards the target. Okay, so this is one that you can modify, and the rugby coaches in the group can modify there so that it'll actually improve, or so that it'll actually target the same sort of stuff that you're looking at in your passing. Is it a perfect rugby pass? No, of course it's not. But we're hitting 2 birds with the 1 stone again. We're improving our passing, but we're also improving our rotational power. So just starting in a similar position, loading at the hip, hands towards the target. And again, whatever cues that your coach is giving you to work on your passing, you can bring in there with your medicine ball. Okay. So look, that's pretty much me. I've tried to give you as many exercises as possible there in 30 minutes. The big thing for me was that idea of all of this stuff you can do yourself, even if you don't have access to a gym or training at the moment. You can do your jumps, and there's a limitless amount of them. You can go out and you can practice your speed, whether it's your acceleration, whether it's your top speed, whether it's your change of direction. You can do it on your own, or you can do it with a partner. Make it a race, make it exciting. And then with one extra piece of equipment, with just that medicine ball, you can throw in all these extra exercises as well. Okay, all these extra, whether they're rotational, vertical, or horizontal. All right. So that's pretty much me. If anyone wants to jump in there, we'll run through if anyone has questions, right, and they want to share. Yeah, if anyone wants to throw anything at us, hopefully people have got something out of that. I don't know if anyone has a question they want to ask or add.
Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, go for it, Jack.
So I understand the jump movement that you're obviously pushing up, but the exercise you're showing at the start of like the landing, what like part of the body are we activating from just the land? Because I understand the push movement is obviously you're using your, let's say, your hamstrings or your lower body to push you from that position, but the landing position I don't understand really.
Okay, so basically the landing position probably doesn't carry over to rugby a whole lot. It gives you the foundation to start your jump training. So what we're looking at there is that, can we get the body comfortable with absorbing force, which would be the same as if you're hit with a tackle, can you absorb force? But it's what we're looking at is, can we absorb force so that when we go to the more explosive jumps, we're going to get a little bit more out of it. Okay, so the body kind of tries to prevent itself from getting injured. So it won't let you jump any higher than it thinks you're able to control. So we know that if we improve the landing a little bit, we almost take the brakes off. We take the handbrake off so that we allow the body to jump a little bit higher, free from the fear of it getting injured. So on its own, it probably doesn't do a whole lot, but it's more to give you a foundation to build that house
on. Perfect, thank you. And just on the equipment and stuff, is there any websites and stuff that you'd recommend? I know you'd mentioned one or two to me before, but I've lost them now.
I think,
in terms of like maybe bands and stuff like that as well.
I think Max Sport are doing an awful lot on the medicine ball side of things, and then on bands you could go to them, or Sports Physio Supplies in Tipperary do a load of them as well. They're the two I use, but if anyone else has ones, feel free to send them my way there, or throw them in the chat.
Thanks, Steve.
Awesome. Is there anyone else wants to add anything or ask anything?
Yeah, Steve, just from like a typical week, from like training at the start of the week to weekend having your match, when should you kind of incorporate any sort of acceleration plyometrics or Olympic lifting into the week?
Deadly, yeah. I suppose it's probably where you'd like to, the idea is that you want it to improve your performance without tiring you out. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to hit that early in the week. So if we're playing on a Saturday, you'd be looking at if you can get your strength session or your power session in probably the Monday or the Wednesday, if you're going to train on a Tuesday night. But it's those first 3 days in the week where you're going to get the most benefit from it. There are some people who find a real big benefit from doing a power session the day before a match. It's something that you can definitely try out. If it works for you, then definitely go for it. And it might be a real simple session where you do 3 different jumps, 3 different throws, and 2 Olympic lifts, if that's something you're comfortable with, as a kind of to almost turn your nervous system on before the match the following day. Or some people will even do it the morning of a match. Saturday morning, they'll get those couple of warm-up exercises done that morning, and they're ready for the match there. But if you're going to do it and you're going to kind of load it a little bit, we're looking at earlier in the week. That Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday seems to be the place you're going to get the most benefit out of it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And then just on I know you kind of touched on it briefly at the start, but the Olympic lifts, if you're kind of struggling to put more weight on in terms of lifting it, would it be better to kind of worry about that technique in terms of going heavier, or just increase your reps and sets kind of thing, like increase the workload rather than the actual weight, or do it slowly, like 2.5s, 1.5s, those kind of
you've probably 2 ideas there you can go with. Idea 1 is you probably work on the technique so that it is really fast, so that it's quite explosive, because we don't really want it slowing down too much. The other option is you can do a variation of an Olympic lift. So if you're not comfortable maybe with a full clean and jerk, you might have enough in just a clean. Someone else might have enough in just a high pull, where you can get a little bit more weight on and really hammer that power side of the curve without having to be perfectly proficient in all those lifts, in the full lift. So there's 2 options there. Really nail your technique on the full lift, or go for the partials. That's what I'd look at there. but we never want to go crazy on reps on Olympic lifts. 2 or 3 is lowest in a set. Sorry.
Perfect. Spot on. Thanks.
Steve,
Yes, sir.
what's just a quick one? Duffer was saying about the Olympic lifts. So what would kind of be like good strength standards for us, or what should we kind of be looking to work towards? Because like I know myself and a lot of people wouldn't be familiar with it, like Olympic lifting at all. So what would be kind of basically a good baseline standard for us to work towards?
Yeah, that's that's one of those how long is a piece of string questions. I think the big one there is that if you can't lift, like kind of a good idea there is if you can't lift half your body weight, you're not getting any transfer of power. Now that's not to say that it's not worth doing so that you improve your technique. But I'd be saying if you're not comfortable at those sort of weights, then I'd break it down to a partial so that you can force yourself to work a little bit heavier there. Any improvement is still an improvement. So if you can put an extra 5 kg on your hang clean or your high pull, that's going to transfer to some benefit to your performance. But I wouldn't necessarily stress about you've got to hit this number. I think we kind of drive ourselves crazy on that one sometimes.
Yeah, grand, thanks.
Steve,
Yes, sir.
just in terms of the sprints and all that sort of stuff and the max speed, what kind of like reps or sets will we be looking to do for in terms of like the acceleration stuff and then the top speed one as well?
Deadly, yeah, really good question actually. That's kind of one that makes you think a little bit because I suppose in season I'd be hoping that we're hitting a little bit of it on the pitch. So I know with you guys, when I'm taking the warm, I try to have one day is very much acceleration and one day is change of direction. And we kind of hope to hit top speed on one of those days. In that case, you probably only need to do one additional session in the week. So maybe just smash your acceleration at the start of your gym session. This time of year, obviously, or the off season, the longest off season in the world, you can probably hit a little bit of it every time you do a strength session or every time you do a fitness session. So if you're doing, I know a lot of guys at the moment and girls are probably doing maybe 2 strength sessions and 2 running sessions. That's kind of what people are touching on at the moment. If you're doing that, then there's a perfect opportunity that we get some much more technique-based stuff on the acceleration stuff and the change of direction at the start of our strength work and a little bit of top speed then before one of our fitness sessions. So that's how I'd split it up in the week at the moment. In terms of reps, it's little and often. You're just throwing a little sprinkle of a garnish on top of your meal there. So if you can get 3 reps in a week of top speed work, if you could get 8 reps in a week of real good change of direction at full speed and 8 reps of real good accelerations in the week, you're probably in a really good place.
Would you say is it beneficial to do it like, let's say you do your warm up and then you do your speed work and then you do like master run then after?
Yeah, that's exactly how I try and throw it in. Yeah, absolutely. All right, because it works as a warm up and you're also doing a little bit of actual technique work there as well.
Yeah, ideal. Perfect. Thanks.
Really good questions, guys. Is there anything else? Feel free to ask.
I just had one as well, sorry, on the acceleration. I think you said, is it the first 10 to 12 meters you should be, if say you're specifically, and I know it probably varies between individual because obviously people, it takes longer to get to a top speed, but like, should you be aiming to within the first 10, 12 meters, that should be the aim to get top speed, or is that kind of the level of what we expect acceleration is?
Yeah, I think if you look at track athletes, they probably don't hit top speed till about the 40-meter mark. But with field sport athletes, what we usually see is that you're not going to get an opportunity to do that. So when we're practicing our acceleration, I'd usually go 10 to 15 yards. I'd never go further than the 22.
All right.
Okay. Just on that, and it's a really good point that's worth putting in there about top speed. If you haven't hit, you need to hit your half of your top speed between your second and third step if you're a field sport athlete. Okay, and that's one that everyone can take away there. You need to put so much force into the ground in your first 2 steps that halfway between your second and your third step, you're at half of your maximum speed. And we know that that's a really good indicator that you're in a good place to play field sports. So that's just one that's a challenge there for everybody when you're doing your speed work. Those first 3 steps, that decides where you're going.
Because obviously we wouldn't be using our top speed frequently in a match. It would all be kind of accelerating actions, jumping from a rope or whatever it may be. So like, a kind of apart from those kind of like starting stops, it's just like belly, going from your belly up to like that kind of almost in the blocks. Is there anything else in terms of that you can improve,
Really,
or is just those exercises on repetition kind of?
It's putting yourself in that position. And you're only limited by your imagination there. You can partner up with someone, throw you the ball, turn and go. That can be a really nice one. You can react to a call. You can react to someone kicking a ball on your tummy, on your back, on your knees, any number of positions. And then, like I say, it works really, really well if you train those slower jumps, those counter movement jumps, and those non-counter movement jumps in the gym or wherever you're doing your strength work. If you train those as well, they carry over really, really well to acceleration as well.
Thanks, Jake.
Well, Steve, just a quick one for you. If you're planning on doing power and sprinting and stuff, would you better off going to the gym and doing power first and then sprinting, or which way would you do it?
So you're going to do a power session in the gym and a sprinting session the same day, is it?
Yeah, say if you were just,
I would.
Would you do sprinting first or the power session first?
I'd make the call there based on which one is more likely to cause you grief. And for me, you're a field sport athlete, so I want you to be really good on the pitch. So do the pitch first when you're fresh and healthy. And then if you're still feeling good enough to do the power in the gym afterwards, go for it. But if you do your power session in the gym and you're carrying any bit of fatigue, then your acceleration on the pitch either won't be as good or you're more likely to get injured. So that's like, I think a lot of the time we try and do when people are doing double sessions where they're doing fitness or when they're doing, rugby and strength in the same day, they try and do gym first. It'd be great if we could flip that, because ultimately everyone on this call is a rugby player first. So let's get the rugby done really, really well, or anything on the pitch done really, really well, and leave the other stuff as an add-on afterwards.
Yeah, sound for that, Steve.
Awesome.
Steve, you know the way, just to follow on 30's question, with you said do the acceleration before you do something like mass runs after?
Yes.
Ideally, could you like split them up? So
in an ideal world, you do them in 2 separate sessions. Yeah, if you're one of the, what have we got, 44 people on the call, if you're one of the 40 people on the call who are doing nothing at the moment, then yeah, if you could do your speed stuff in the morning and your fitness stuff in the evening, that would be even better again. Yeah, sorry, that was just more if you were under a little bit of time pressure and you needed to do the 2 in the 1 session, that's how I'd split them up. But if you could split them completely, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, that's fine.
Anything else from anyone, or forever hold your peace?
Steve, just on like speed sessions, how long, like time-wise, should you like spend on them, ideally?
So if you're going out to the pitch and practicing speed work as a standalone session,
and acceleration. Yeah.
You definitely wouldn't want to be going more than 30 minutes. That's probably enough time for you to get a really good warm-up done, a little bit of technique work done, a couple of jumps, and a couple of really, really good high energy sprints, accelerations, or changes of direction. That's probably then you draw the line after that. So I'd be worried if you were spending much longer than about 30 minutes on the pitch in that session.
Perfect, thanks.
Awesome.
Steve, just on the, like, for warm-ups and stuff, you know, what levels, like, how long first should we spend on them? Like, if we're doing a half-hour session, and like, I'm not sure if you said it already because I missed the start of the call. And then also, like, should we be kind of, I know for our games and stuff, like, we'd be fairly bollocks, like, coming off the warm-up, like, we'd be really well warmed up and stuff, but like, what kind of level should we be at, like?
So this is if you're doing a session on your own, is it?
Yeah.
I think, to be honest, you're probably going to get most of the benefits of a warm-up in the first 10 minutes. There was a study actually recently that looked at exactly that and compared a 10-minute warm-up with a 20-minute warm-up, and there's actually very little difference in terms of how things improve. I know, and Flav might throw something more at this, but I know with the seniors, we have a 20-minute warm-up because we want to get the body ready, but also we want to get the mind ready, and we want to get the hands ready to play a game of rugby. But if you're doing just a physical session on your own, you'll probably get enough benefit from a 10-minute warm-up. So you look at your couple of bits of dynamic stretches, a bit of movement to get the heart rate up, and then your skips, your jumps, your transition into the main session. And that shouldn't really take you much more than 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Last call. Going, gone. Anyone want to get anything else answered off their chest?
Is resistance band running any help or use?
Oof, great question. That's an outstanding question. So what we know with that is that it's something that's worth adding in a little bit. So a little bit of resisted sprinting is useful. There's two things we want to kind of avoid though. We want to avoid one, it becoming the majority of your speed session, because we know then the body's going to get really good at running against resistance bands, and it's going to forget about running without resistance bands. And then two, we want to try and avoid it slowing it down too much. So if you usually run at, if you're Usain Bolt, you can run at 10 meters per second. If we're slowing it down so that you're only running at 5 meters per second, that's not going to have any beneficial carryover. So we want just a small reduction in your speed, so that it's a small little bit of resistance, if we're going to get the most carryover to a speed session. So we can, the best way, if you are going to use resistance bands in your training, is that you might use a contrast effect. So you might do a sprint against a resistance band that only slows you down a little bit, and then from there, your very next run is without that resistance band. So we're teaching the body to overcome that resistance, and then to transfer that into an actual body weight sprint. So yeah, they're another tool that can be used.
Grand, thanks.
Awesome question. Okay, look, I think we're, I suppose, like I said at the beginning, I kind of want to thank everybody for rocking up and giving up a bit of their time for tonight. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you learned something useful, and that you've got something that you can carry into the rest of your week, the rest of your off season, however long it lasts, and that you're going to be able to use to improve your rugby going forward. Flav, do you want to try anything at the end there? Or are you happy enough as the senior coach in the group?
No, not at all. I just think it's a brilliant tool for the lads and lasses and coaches that are on the call to have Steve disseminating all his knowledge out to you guys. So just make sure that you take that on board. I think Tom is going to look at getting the slides sent out. I think if he wasn't, I've just stitched him up that he has to now. So listen, there'll be a lot of information in there, but the key is now is to make sure you, as I said at the start, you make a note of what works for you and put that into practice rather than just sitting here nodding dogs. So thanks again, Steve-O. That was awesome.
Awesome. And look, thanks for everybody for turning up, and hopefully we'll see you next week again for episode 3, as we call it. Thanks very much.
Cheers,
Best of luck, guys.
Well,
Thank
Steve.
you.
Cheers,
Cheers, Steve. See you,
Come on,
everyone.
Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Fingers crossed for Rugby.